Okay, hey, this is Francisca, and this is my mid-crisis life. So yeah, the other day I was talking about seeing that vision of myself as that 2-year-old and her being a bit of a dictator and her kind of running the shots with all of her like fucked up ways of seeing things and her fucked up beliefs and her fucked up conditioning and all of that sort of stuff. And I remembered while I was thinking, after I made that video, while I was thinking about this 2-year-old, that the reason that she came up is because when I was thinking about this date that I went on with this guy, she immediately started saying things like, oh, okay, right. Is this all I get? Yeah. Oh, this is all I get. Again. It's so unfair. Again. Like, it's all so fucking predictable. Like, we knew this was going to happen. Fucking typical me, typical life, whatever, right? And, this came from that kind of like pride, ego based, like pain that's really actually very deep, but it came from that of being kind of like unceremoniously dumped by someone after one date. Um, but the thing is, okay, so that person really did help me in a lot of ways. And I feel like God has just thrown some people in the mix every now and then in my life when I need kind of redirecting or I need help with something. Because I don't have a big network, a big community of people around me that are um, influential, I guess, that are kind of feeding me and pulling me up in that way. And that's fine. It just is what it is. But I'm really grateful for that to have been given to me. All right. Okay. Anyway, so this person really helped because they suggested that I think about the why, why do I want to have or do or be whatever it is that I want to have or do or be? And been thinking about it for a little while now. And the truth is that I don't actually know what my why is. I haven't really figured it out, but what keeps coming to me whenever I think about this question is that I just want to stop the suffering. I just want it to be over at some point. I just want to stop having lessons and climbing up hills and being the bigger person and, I don't know, forgiving other people and working on myself. I just want it to stop. But it was interesting that it came up as this word like suffering, right? That I feel like I'm suffering and I want the suffering to stop. And the thing is that I do know that, you know, all battles begin in the mind, right? Because it's how you speak to yourself, the words that you use, what you focus on, like the language essentially that's coming out of your mind is creating a perception, and that perception is creating reality. And I know for a fact that you want to, if you want to change your mindset, the fundamental thing that you need to do is you need to focus on what you want and not what you don't want. Because your brain can't differentiate between the not this, can't have, don't want. It focuses on the thing that you're talking about. So if you say to yourself, well, I don't want to see a purple elephant, I don't want to think about a cat balancing on a ball with a hat on its head and a bow tie. Like, your brain is automatically going to think of those things because it doesn't hear the don't. So if you talk about, for example, money, I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be poor. What it hears is poor. It's like, oh, okay. Poorness is what you're focusing on. So when I think about the fact that I don't want to suffer, I know that really what I'm doing is I'm just creating more suffering, right? So I'm looking at what I've written here so that I can remember, right? So the brain doesn't work on deficits. Like, it responds to what's there. So by me keep on focusing on suffering, I will keep suffering, and I'm creating suffering in my life because this is literally what I'm obsessed with, clearly underneath it all. And the question is why? Why am I doing this? And I have to think to myself, is this actually something that fundamentally I want? Do I want to suffer? Right? And that got me to thinking why it is that I would want to suffer. So, firstly, suffering is very Catholic. And I'm definitely not a practicing Catholic, but I was brought up in a Catholic home. And I wouldn't say it was like fundamentally Catholic or we were, strongly practicing Catholics, but there was definitely this message, and there's this message that comes through now. And as I watch my mum now that she's got much more deeper into her faith in that remit of faith, that sufferance and suffering and being a person who suffers is equated with following I don't know, it sounds crazy, but like following the teaching of Jesus. So like there's like these legalistic rituals that are very Catholic. So if you follow the law, if you follow the legalistic part of the Bible and you do as you're told, then you are a good Catholic and you'll go to heaven. And a lot of those rules are about suffering. And the thing is that it mirrors my childhood very much so, because in my household, there was an expectation that doing what was expected of you was the only way to get any kind of positive regard from either of my parents. So there was this like expectation that this was the road as declared and decreed by my parents. And ironically, they both had two different decrees. So that was really confusing. But either which way, even if you just look at it as this concept, there was this road that was decreed, and that was the road, that was the path that you had to walk. And any like even a toe or a step off that path, it wasn't a mistake, it wasn't your own journey, it wasn't you finding your own feet, it wasn't you doing something that was authentic and genuine to yourself. It was just wrong. And what it meant was, it meant that you were not one of us and you are not a part of us and you have no value anymore. Like, it wasn't just wrong, like, okay, you do what you want, but I don't agree with it. It was like, no, you are wrong. You are wrong and you are no longer valuable. So yeah, it was kind of the only way to get any kind of positive regard from my parents. It was the only way to get any sense of closeness. It was the only way to create any type of attachment. And what was expected was to be good. And being good didn't mean being a good person. Being good meant being righteous. So righteous in all of your actions as declared by the most righteous people in the family, which were my parents. And the problem with righteousness is that it so easily slips into self-righteousness. And I think that's the thing that I've been struggling with. Like, well, how comes I'm doing all of this stuff and you're not doing fuck all and your life seems better than mine? That's a really self-righteous, pig ignorant way to look at the blessings that I get, the blessings that other people get, and this kind of barometer that I've created around what's good and what's good enough. So it's just mirroring a lot of like the experiences that I had when I was younger. So yeah, what was expected was to be good and to be righteous. And how do you be good? You suffer. This is how you create. This is how you show that you're a good person, right? So to be good, to me, equates to suffering. And the thing is that I suffer, so I'm good. And I'm good, and that is suffering, but it's not authentically me. It's who I'm supposed to be. So therefore, to be good also is to suffer. I suffer in being good because it's not actually who I am, right? So I question all the time, why is everyone else not suffering? And why are the people that don't suffer rewarded? Because suffering equals reward for me. But the problem is that if I suffer if I focus on my suffering and other people's suffering, then what I'm doing is I'm creating that same theme every single day in my life. Just this theme of suffering, suffering and reward, suffering and reward. So Joe Dispenza talks about the fact that where you place your attention, you place your energy. And all my energy is going into suffering with this expectation that I'll be rewarded. And then when I'm not rewarded, I suffer even further. So it's just like, I clearly want to suffer. This is what I'm manifesting in my life, right? Okay, so I looked it up, right? And I looked up what are the synonyms of suffering? What actually is suffering defined as? What other words would be the same as suffering? And I've written it down here. Adversity, anguish, hardship, grief, misery, misfortune, torment, martyrdom, torture. These are all the feelings that I feel all the time. I feel anguish, I feel hardship, I feel misery, I feel constant grief that I don't have what it is that I feel that I deserve. Like, there is a massive sense of martyrdom, which is like that comparison, because martyrdom is like, in its purest form, something that a saint would do, right? But when you're a martyr in the hope subconsciously that you will then become a saint, it's no longer martyrdom. It's something slightly augmented from what it's supposed to be, right? And it's like, I'm torturing myself every day, expecting that through that torture, I will be rewarded with greatness. Because in my household, my introjected values, as Carl Rogers would talk about them, they state that to suffer and to be a martyr meant that you gave more than you took, and that I was being a good girl, and that I could be rewarded with some love and some attention and some value if I did those things. So my whole value is in sufferance. And it's like completely toxic and augmented and contorted and skewed, this idea of what value is. And it's based upon completely external, conditioned belief systems that have been downloaded into me from a very young age that continue to affect me to this day. They're not even mine. They're not even my beliefs. They were just what I felt I really needed to do in order to survive, because you can't survive without love. You can't survive without attention. No one loves you, or no one gives you any attention. Like, they don't even care to know that you're hungry, that you're dying, that you're struggling, just on those base levels. If no one loves you, no one's feeding you, no one's housing you. So I also looked up the antonyms of suffering. What's the opposite of suffering? And it's all the things that I want to feel: joy, happiness, pleasure, delight, contentment, bliss, exaltation. I like that word. Elation, joyousness, and blessedness. And all I talk about all the time is wanting to be blessed. All I talk about, not to other people, but mainly internally, is like, I'm done with the lessons. I want the blessings. I want the blessings. How can I be blessed if I feel that my value is in suffering? Yeah, exactly. How can I be blessed if my MO is to suffer to have value? So what needs to happen is I need to begin to like shed those conditioned limiting beliefs. And I think the first thing and the first step is happening because I'm letting go of my mum. I'm cutting that cord, that desire to be loved by someone who will only love me if I'm towing the line, if I'm doing what I'm told, if I'm being good and righteous, and I'm suffering in order to show that I have value. And I think that there's a need to like reorganize my thoughts and my feelings and my beliefs so that that can then impact my actions to create like a new internal foundation that doesn't equate value and positive regard and the acquisition of anything that I might want, rewards and blessings and all the rest of it, with suffering. And it makes me think about what I was talking about the other day in terms of octaves that those octaves of self-actualization, that you reach the pinnacle of one and that's just kind of like the baseline of another. And it reminds me as well in terms of that theory that I believe in, that's like head, heart and body, that I've been through this whole process of understanding, of forgiving others, forgiving myself, forgiving circumstances, releasing those things from my body. And now I'm at a new level of understanding again. And I'm now back to kind of like analyzing, questioning, querying, um, compartmentalizing things, pulling things apart, putting them back together so that I can understand what's happening inside of me at the moment. And that's kind of the foundation of a new level. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's where I'm at for today. Let's talk about some stuff that I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for the potential of opportunity for a different future. And I'm grateful for all of the times that I've done the same fucking thing and been in this loop, because I've learned a lot and those experiences are meaningful and beneficial, even though I've been stuck in a loop for a long time. And the other thing I'm grateful for as well is I was thinking the other day about how, you know, I want to create all these shorts and put them out there and hopefully try and make something happen, create something more out of this. Um, and I was filled with so much fear, so much fear. And then I was thinking about, you know what? Actually, even if I completely fail, whatever that means, right? Even if I don't achieve whatever it is that I think I need to achieve to finally be whole, even if I fall on my face and nobody gives a shit about anything that I have to say, actually, I have such gratitude that I even have something to lose, that I have something to fail at, that I've been given and blessed with all of the things that make me me. My mind and, my heart and my experiences and all of that other stuff that gives me something to fucking talk about, to potentially fail at. Yeah, and funny, I'm really grateful to my mum for creating that distorted understanding of my values, that distorted belief system, that distorted conditional positive regard. I'm really grateful to her, because without her, there would be no catalyst to begin to start looking at these things, to begin to start healing these things on a cellular level, on a spiritual level, on that level that is my soul, that is eternal, like on that eternal level. That's what I've come here to do. So I'm really grateful to her for playing her part, doing it the best that she could, never wavering from the role that she got assigned when we all came down here to do this iteration. and acting as a catalyst for me to be able to grow. It's an amazing thing. All right, cool. That's all.